very first question. So the title of today's topic is child nutrition and investment for best future. So how can you please justify this statement?
Yeah, actually, this topic, when you asked me, what topic, and so the first thing that came to my mind was, about child nutrition, and what it just occurred to me that nowadays a lot of it is being talked about, whatever problems, disorders we talk of, whatever complications of adulthood diseases and all we talk of, ultimately whether it's a gut microbiota or whether it's the eating habits or the active patterns, or even now, especially after lockdown, we are going back to our old routine of home cooked food, etc. So that struck me that the whole thing goes back to the foundation of nutrition during the childhood. So let's say this thing is that child is the father of the nation. So in this context, I would love to say that in nutrition, actually, the child is the father of a good, healthy, human being, a person, and only then, if he's a good, healthy person mentally and physically, can he contribute to the nation. And so that foundation is actually laid in childhood itself, right from birth. Actually, in fact, it actually goes even before birth. That's another big topic itself. But then whatever foundation is laid during this time, that actually becomes an investment, because that is going to be take you a long way in terms of good health and longevity and quality of life. So otherwise, you see, this is what at our age, and what we are seeing in the next generation, that that generations that are coming along, the younger ones, that the problem is arising when this generation goes to they are at their point career when they finish their studies, actually. That time, till then, they don't think of their nutrition, and they say whatever parents have given them, that goes off, because in between there's a long gap and they have exposed to so many external factors. But then when they actually start their career, when they are slightly settled in life, that is when they start even facing these health problems, and most of them are related to nutrition. And that is how we see, like, I think you all also must have faced be seeing the similar situations, that such young people now are even getting aware of good nutrition and good diet, and so they're coming to for help to like that. So that is why it's an investment for the future.
Right. So you were mentioning about the gut microbiota. So the role of diet in influencing the gut microbiota in the childhood. I mean, can you please explain something about
actually, it's a very complex subject. Actually, I cannot give you a very detailed thing, very technical things in this term. But then, a lot of studies have shown that not only from birth itself, but this actually starts from the mother's diet, right from conception.
Okay.
And where we talk, like you can say, the first 1,000 days of life, where that actually is the period from the time of conception, when the mother conceives, until the age of 2 years of the child's life. So when the mother conceives, and at that time, if her diet and her health is not optimal, that actually translates into the fetal health. And whatever she eats during that period of time, in fact, even like we go a little step backwards and say that, right from the adolescent age, when her body reproductive system especially is being formed, then, and even, in terms of her whole system as a body to, support a new life, her diet is going to influence the whole of that. And so much so is said about the gut microbiota that, your diet actually can change and alter, the diversity of the microbiota in your gut. And it can make it more healthy, it can make it more unhealthy, displace the dysbiosis, process that can happen by displacing the, healthy bacteria. And if that, the diet is, modulated at that particular time or around that time, the fetus also will be affected. The gut by the same, those genes can be passed on to the fetus. And in case the diet is unhealthy, like mothers are prone to eating, junk foods or unhealthy foods, or which are not good, they can actually go to the extent of gene mutation. Mutation of the gene at the gut microbiota level, and these actually are transmitted to the fetus, and the child is born with that. No, somewhere somebody had mentioned in one of the conferences that this a time will come we can also call we'll have to include this in the non-communicable diseases itself, because it's part of NCD, because indirectly, because the mother's diet is being influencing the fetal health and the gut microbiota also, and that is being carried on, given to the child as a gift at birth, and after the child is born, and however his diet and his he's exposed to whatever environment, it goes on. It depends on that. So basically, that's why I said the gut microbiota also plays a very important role, right? So from the beginning, so it's an investment. If you have right from the mother's diet, in fact, for those first 1,000 days.
Right. Okay. What impact does the first 2 years of the formative years nutrition have on an infant?
Yeah, so taking this ahead, the first 1,000 days, this till the age of 2 years, these are the formative years in the sense that child, actually the whole body, like all the systems in the body are growing very rapidly, but it is the brain which is the maximum one growing very fast. And the maximum development of the brain happens during these first 2 years. The myelination process and the synaptic activity and all that, the networking connectivity of the neurotransmitters and all these that happens in the first 2 years. So it's very important that good nutrition is given right from from the mother's diet after she conceives, and from day one, from day zero till the child is 6 months, where she's fed. The child is fed exclusively breastfeed 6 months for breastfeeding, because that is a complete diet. So whatever the mother, even if the mother's health may not be optimum, but the quality of the food, the milk that she would produce in terms of proteins and other things would be good. It will be as comparable with any other, till undernourished mother, also not so healthy mother. But then if these 6 months are missed out and this exclusive breastfeeding is not given, there are so many immune factors, in the breast milk, which cannot be actually replaced by the formula milk or any top milk, even how close they try to bring it in terms of other macronutrients. So that is where one big setback the child or infant gets if he's not breastfed. So after the child is breastfed for 6 months exclusively, and he's given that cushion of immunity and good health and the good foundation of the whole balanced nutrient and all that, then comes the complementary feeding. So again, complementary feeding is very important, because by 6 months time the mother's milk also starts gradually coming down, and the quality of the and the requirement of the child, because the child is also growing very fast after 6 months, and there are spurts of growth in between. So the child's requirements, the demands increase, which cannot be met at that point of time after 6 months from the mother's milk. So in that case, we definitely have to supplement with certain other semi-solids and other cereals and other foods in a very age-appropriate manner, and continue with and be very conscious of the fact that we include all kinds of the nutrients that are incorporated into the whatever complementary foods that we offer. And again, another thing is that during these 2 years itself, when a child learns to eat, learns new flavors and all, it is the responsibility of the parents at that point of time to introduce the child to as many flavors as possible. And even so much during lactation, because that is a period of peak lactation also till 2 years. Many mothers, Indian mothers, are able to lactate till 2 years also. And whatever the diet the mother consumes, the flavors, whatever kind of flavors and diverse kind of flavors that she has and the variety that she has in her food, those flavors are actually transmitted to the child also through her breast milk. So the child will get adapted very gradually, maybe, but to those various variety of flavors. So when we say that the child does not eat this, does not eat that, somewhere you have to look behind. Was there a problem in the mother's choice of foods also? Because that is of studies have shown this, that, these are transmitted through the mother. The flavors, the choice of foods actually is transmitted through the mothers, just like so many other factors are transmitted from the mother to the baby. So this is another important thing. And then once again, once we start introducing one small little thing, small foods, and semi-solid foods, and those will be, of course, what your home foods, whatever we are eating, but in a different texture, different, amounts around. So those would be the cereals, pulses, small vegetables. So those all will be coming in one by one in various forms and at different timings. And then it may happen, that the child may not like a certain taste. Child might refuse as it grows older. One particular food the mother has offered, the child will just not refuse it once or may not accept it once or twice, maybe. But there are a lot of studies which have shown that, a baby till around the age of 2 years needs at least about 10 to 12 exposures of one particular flavor to get acclimatized to that flavor. So parents or the mothers, the caregivers, whoever they are, they should not give up that, oh, I tried these 3 times I tried and the child is just refusing, he just doesn't have it. So just leave it, try some other flavor, try some other food, and then retry again after some gap. And then once you have really exposed the child for 10 to 12 times, and you have a period of 2 years to give this exposure to the child. And during that period, if your own diet, your environmental diet, the family diet is healthy, because the child will emulate, gradually whatever. See, the child starts talking and, whatever, your language, mother tongue that you're talking at home. So the child will pick up those words and all, and the child will listen. So same way, the child will emulate the, eating pattern also from the home environment. So that is the first environment that the child is exposed to. School will come a little later. So it's very important that in the family we incorporate a very healthy eating environment, so that a newborn is gets into this time and gets accustomed and becomes a part of the thing. It gets ingrained into him. So like South Indian will say like they can't do without their curd rice. So similarly, because South Indian, if he'll go anywhere they'll go, then he will definitely want a curd rice.
Right.
Something like that.
Right.
If similarly we inculcate these habits right from the beginning in our family, and we see that we don't expose the child to something different, and it can't be that, you are eating something, you're giving a child something, so that will not work then. You have to be a role model also for that.
Right. So, these generation kids, they generally accompany their parents for groceries also. Right, yeah. Ma'am. So they see the healthy foods over there, but still, their eyes are on mostly on this junk food, chips, chocolates,
this
and
is a big challenge.
Where it is going wrong, and how do we?
This is a big challenge for mothers. So what I suggest is that try to divert the attention. So when they're very young, you cannot just explain to them why it's not good or whatever. Try to just divert the attention of the child to something different or something else. Or if you go to most of these stores, if you go, they have various aisles of classified foods. Different types of foods. There'll be those processed foods in one line, oils, and types. So you try to avoid those aisles wherever those kind of foods are there, and try to go into the other ones where there are some good things and all. Or you go to the aisles of the fruits, those corners where the fruits and vegetables are stacked. So they'll be exposed to what these colors, and when they see different types of colors and a variety of fruits and vegetables, probably they will not immediately get this thing that this is good and all. You can't explain to them, but when you go them buy, involve them at home also, you cook the same things. Not that you try to cook vegetables, the father is eating something else, the elder sister is eating something else, she's getting the home delivered food from Swiggy, and poor little child you're trying to feed, you're trying to think is healthy. So that can't be done. So you have to, as a family, as I said, it takes a family to bring up good habits, eating habits in a child.
Definitely.
One alone cannot be, responsible. And again, I would say a little bit help from the government nowadays. The Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, they are doing a lot of pesticides, doing a lot of work on educating and bringing healthy concepts of eating, especially in children also, school tiffins and etc. Like they have banned the having these junk foods stalls at schools. Certain schools, they are not allowed. So I think somewhere along the line, the ads of these unhealthy processed food, dangling in front of children and luring them into that also need to be somewhere minimized, or something needs to come out from there in some way.
Okay. This actually, children, they are generally picky eaters. I mean, maybe after 2 or 3 years, after maybe in 3 years, I mean, I generally see this with my daughter. So what happens, they eat, okay, for a certain period of time. And at a point of time, they stop eating a food completely. I mean, I mean, even though they like that food, I mean, it can be a fruit or a dry fruit or whatever it is. But at some time, they say no for a food. Why does this happen actually?
See, there can be many factors in this. So if it is once occasionally, you might say, I think, you can just ignore it. You don't have to be, once the child refuses and you get after the child. I think that's not good also. But what you could do, probably think, if it's happening repeatedly, you have to think back, just look back. Is there any problem in the chewing part? Or is has child eaten anything before what you tried to offer at that time? Unknowingly, because these days, so many things are just available. The access is the children, 3, 4, 4, 5-year-old children, and just go and get something on their own also, within their. So, or probably they're playing, or there's somebody else, elders in the house, grandparents, or somebody, uncles and aunts, who probably might have offered them a biscuit or a chocolate or something, and then you try to offer something, probably the child refused. Or if it's happening frequently, you have to check whether, the child is not eating just a particular food, or is not eating the normal general, meal.
Daily eating. Yeah.
If the child is eating a meal, 3 times meal he's having, and then also you see whether the child is gaining weight. Is he growing well? So if he's growing well, if he's gaining height and weight, he's not looking, is he not underactive, lethargic, or irritable or something. If that also is happening, then you have to look back and see, is the child, his anemic status. Because sometimes the children may not be eating healthy, and their hemoglobin levels drop down, and even they can be, even when they are mild to moderate anemic also, they keep moving around. But to a point, if you try to stretch, then they just give up. So anemia is one more factor, which can be just a loss of appetite, but that will happen for every meal. So you have to judge what's happening. Or probably, in North, I can give you an example. In the North over here, elders also are very fond of offering tea to them. And here, tea is quite an addiction in most of the homes, and they keep having tea very frequently. For any occasion, they need a cup of tea. Okay, we'll have sit over a cup of tea. So probably somebody is having tea, or they've offered them, the child, some few sips of tea or something. So tea is something which I'm very much against, and I've been very vehement and was vocal about avoiding resisting from children given offered tea, right? Even actually so much to the extent of in feeding bottles, right? Children are being fed. Had used to the feeding bottles till the age of 3 and 4 years, I've seen, and they're being fed tea in that. So the child doesn't take milk, okay, tea, usko white person nahi hai. So you add a little bit of tea. Rather than adding something else or making it more healthy in some other way, they'll add tea. So tea is one thing, they have in many homes, at least in North India, I have seen. If you ask them, if you probe into the history, you will know that they are eating something here and there, or some biscuit here and there. And that is called grazing. So that grazing, if that is avoided, then you have to, very particular about the meal times. So, the 3 meals and the 2 in between, they will not have large meals at a time. But then whatever, you have to fix timings of their meals. So you have to decide as a parent, your role, division of role will be like, what the child is going to eat, where the child is going to eat, what would be like, once a meal. So you do give some options, okay? The child, you like a bread, or you're giving paratha, or you're giving this. You give two options or something near about in that particular area group itself. But don't give him too many options where you feel that then you are at a loss to offer that. Right. Or don't sometimes when they're single children or very pampered children, the mothers would just go out and they have help at home. Probably these days mothers don't have time to cook also. So if they have help at home, what they do is, okay, you don't like this, you probably like. The child will just order something and the helpful, maid or whoever is there will try to make that. So those short order cooking should be avoided, even if they can make it. The short order cooking. So the child is used to that kind of a behavior. So this again partially is a behavioral thing, a problem, in the sense that the child tries to exploit your emotions.
Right,
and
right.
that whatever I do, I will, it will be heard and I'll be given. So you have to make it, the child should understand that, you're firm about what is going to be given. Maybe some 2 or 3 options this way or that way, or the type of preparation for some small where. Now, where is very important. You have to make a, time, where a place, a dining table or somewhere in the kitchen where the child eats, not in front of a TV or roaming or running around of the house, and they're going. So, but that's what happens. They're going, sitting on the wall, compound walls, and calling the crow and giving one, bite in them, putting one bite in the mouth, and also those kind of things should not be there. Where the child should be eating, that should be decided, and the when timings, and then how much the child eats, that should be left with the child. You don't have to force them. Maybe leave it for some time and offer it at the next meal. But don't let them graze, because if he's not had the meal at that particular time, whatever amount he's had half of it, you try to, at a sitting in a given place, 15-20 minutes you have spent or so, and then you just leave it. Take away the plate and wait for the next meal time or the snack time. But in between, if the child asks for something here and there, some tidbits here and there, just do not eat, because that again will kill the appetite. And whatever the child's appetite would be, when he's hungry, he will definitely eat. Maybe not once, twice, third time he'll think, okay, if I don't eat, I'll feel hungry, I won't be given anything. So gradually the child will learn. So this just imbibing the behavioral patterns in the manner of eating and this way. So this is, I think, the parents' role is more very important. We are very tedious and very challenging. I agree.
True. We have a question from audience. Samara is asking, what are the food measures should be taken for pregnancy-induced thyroid, which mainly interfere with the brain formation of the child?
In thyroid, see, basically, during pregnancy, the thyroid is there. They put on the thyroxine and all. But as far as the diet is concerned, only we have to see those goitrogenic foods. Those should be avoided. Now, again, there's a concept that just avoid. Blindly, many people just tell them, advise, no soya, no broccoli, nothing. But a lot of studies now, they are not updated. Probably a lot of studies have shown that it is not, that it's just totally banned for them. So ours is a vegetarian population generally. So if we do away with soya products also, and if there is no animal products, just milk or pulses, and milk may not be tolerable for some, they can have in some other form, but how much milk will they be able to have also? Pulses are there, but again there's a limit to the pulses that they can have. So in this also, soya for these things is a very good protein source, and it's shown that it is during the first 4 to 5 hours after taking the medicine in the morning, that these soya products or any of these should not be had, because they interfere with the absorption of the medicine. And then again, after lunch, probably they can have processed. Here, we say processed food should not be given, but here, in case of soya products should always be taken and processed in the form of your tofu, your milk, or soya sulfate milk that you or your tofu is a very good example, or your Nutri nuggets and all. So these can be taken. Of course, soya beans would not be very good because they are not that processed. So those inhibitors can be there in them. Antitoxic, anti-nutrient factors can be there. So those can be avoided. You can actually use the soya commercial products, that the tofu and Nutri nuggets, etc., which can be used, but it is not contraindicated. Similarly for vegetables. Now vegetables, all these, they don't realize that these anti-nutrient factors are actually destroyed after cooking. And most of these, family cauliflower and all that, of course, broccoli people might be having it a little more tender, so they can avoid that. It has to be cooked well. So once it is cooked well, again the anti-nutrient factor is destroyed, and that does not hamper the with the thyroid function. And otherwise, a healthy diet for a mother with, pregnancy with thyroid, it's just a good protein diet, healthy, well-balanced diet should be given. It's nothing very specific. There's no thyroid diet as such, or like a diabetic diet we say, or thyroid. It's nothing like that. It's just a balanced diet in the right proportion for their height and weight, whatever expected height and weight, whatever is required.
Okay. Another question from audience, Nazia Mohammadi is asking, how to stop children getting impressed by their friends' bad lifestyle? To be specific, their bad food choices.
Here again, you see the peer pressure. So this
right.
peer pressure comes, and when these children are slightly older, and especially now in college, like not small children, older children, they refuse to carry tiffin. In our time, we used to carry tiffins to college also.
Right.
But now, they say, if they are carrying my tiffin, what will my friends say? They are having from the canteen, or they're having these kind of foods and all. So I think here what is required is education and awareness. And probably these days schools are quite, proactive in these kind of things. When at college level may not be possible, but at school level, a lot of schools I know, are actually taking the pains to get them. Their children should get healthy foods and all, and not have junk foods, and avoid all these stalls of eating outlets in their campus which are giving unhealthy food. So awareness, education, this is the only thing, and more classes during the school hours. Certain time, some time should be devoted for education of children, more into impressing upon them regarding the healthy foods and the consequences of unhealthy foods.
Okay. Another question from Samara again. Ma'am, I want to know about sugar rush in children.
Sugar rush in children. Actually, sugar rush is what, when these are the children or people who actually are eating too much of sugars and too much, not only sugar as such, but refined foods, processed foods, etc. So when they eat that, they feel full very soon at that point of time, but they feel immediately after, very soon, the sugar levels will go down. And that is again when they go into hypo, or they will not be diabetic, but they will suddenly feel hungry again to eat something else.
Right.
So that is why it is recommended that all these refined products, and especially the white, high salt, high sugar, maida, all white processed foods or the refined foods, these should be avoided, because they actually fill you up very fast. But equally, the sugar levels go down also, crash also very fast, and then they are again going, and then again they are going into the same kind of foods. They may not be eating healthy, so that process will continue and can lead them into complications later.
Okay. We have another question, ma'am. Sufia is asking, as you said that mothers need to take nutritious food at the time of conception, please elaborate exactly what kind of food should be consumed by mother as well as infant after birth.
See, again, during pregnancy, it is, whichever state you belong to, you will be having dal or cereals. You will be having your rice, your chapati. You will be having this pulses in form of sambar. So sambar may not be very thin; it should be a little thick sambar. You can incorporate pulses in various forms of sprouts, etc. You have to have a good variety of vegetables and vegetables, like you have to see that just look at your plate. So your plate should be like half full of vegetables, and a quarter of that should be the protein sources. You should know what the protein sources are from your food. It could be milk products. It could be milk products, any of those curd or paneer or whatever thing you have, or your dals, and then your cereal. So, and in the vegetables and fruits also, the variety is very important. It's not that you just have one particular food only every day, or you have one particular vegetables, one or two of them. The more variety, the more colors you add, the more micronutrients will be incorporated into them. And even that will help your gut microbiota again, because biodiversity will happen with the diverse kind of foods that you have from various sources. So that's very important. So it's basically a very normal diet. Only the requirements from one trimester to the other will increase. The iron, other things will increase. So green leafy vegetables, etc., should be incorporated in whatever form they can. So vegetables and fruits, nuts and oilseeds to some extent are very important, because you have the good fats. You need omega-3 fatty acids also, again very important for the fetal growth also. and later also during the lactation period for the brain development of the child. So nuts and all seeds in some form, like almonds, walnuts, or you can have them. Other seeds these are commonly available these days. And then your cereal is important. So you should not go into particular different kind of those fat diets or those kind of diets which pseudo diets which propagate that this will give you that thyroid kind of a diet. You just say thyroid diet, as I just said, avoid those foods. Or somebody will avoid certain other groups of food. Unless they're diabetic, they have to avoid certain foods. That is a different thing. But again, it's not a diabetic diet per se. It is just a healthy, balanced diet, but with restricted amounts of carbs and good amount of proteins, healthy, which should be there for other normal people also, based on their requirement at that particular time. So it's nothing very special. It's just a very healthy, balanced diet.
Okay. Hazira is asking another question. If an infant eats only a particular texture of food, example, liking only soft foods or only liquid foods or just crunchy foods, and rejecting all other kinds of foods, is this a matter of any underlying problem or just taste issues?
See, it depends on which age group. Is it just when you are starting the weaning process, from the liquids you have gone on to the semi-solid part, and there you would be probably giving very mashed foods, very, very finely mashed foods. So again, if you have introduced certain, these Cerelac and these kind of processed foods, processed in the sense the commercial complementary foods which are available, where they're easy to make and stir and give them also. So those kind of foods, if they have been introduced, are they already exposed to those? They get used to that particular flavor and that addictive texture of that. So it's important that one thing you should start making it as coarse as possible and increase the texture coarseness of the texture with the age. So initially you have to mash it very well, but then gradually don't expose a child to those kind of processed tinned products, because they have a particular texture, particular blend which gives them that addiction, and they may not like the home food texture also. But then if it is a question, you have to see if it's that point, or could it be the child is not able to swallow. So is there any swallowing issue? So it may not be a medical problem or something which has to be referred to a pediatrician. He's just not able to swallow slightly more hard textured foods. He just is swallowing small soft foods or semi-liquid forms. So you have to assess again whether it's just two particular foods. And as a child grows, definitely with a peer group, and if you have children or people, they'll that when you're sitting around with you, to offer a small piece of roti or some piece of little bit of vegetable or something, and you see that the child is able to have or not. So if the child is not able to swallow and is just vomiting out, there's something to be checked and investigated. But if it is just like and dislike, that has to be trained and got over.
Okay. We have another question. Okay. Ma'am, is it good to give cheese added in different healthy dishes to attract the children's?
Give cheese?
Yeah, cheese added to different healthy foods.
See, cheese, there's no harm in giving cheese, as long as the child is just not eating cheese. But if the child is eating, so you want to, give an incentive to the child that, if he has some, you add it to some sandwich, or you add it to some vegetable or some chapati or whatever you're having, or make a paratha also if you're making and you're adding cheese along with it. It can, if it's a processed cheese or it is a home based. I don't know what she means. Is it the paneer or the home cheese which is available in the market, or which we make at home, or is she meaning the processed cheese? A processed cheese in India, like children get to get the flavor as they grow older. In Indian homes, when you start in the home-based diets, we don't generally see having processed cheese in our homes. What we have generally is the paneer, and in North, paneer is very common. So we use the paneer, whether it's you buy it from outside or whether you make it at home. So if that is given, it's nothing like it. They need not have milk as such. They can have paneer. There's no harm. Again, another thing is that some mothers are very obsessed about the child not having milk. They'll be after that your child should have milk. So it's not a big deal. If the child is not having milk, the equivalent amount of milk can be made into a fine form of a porridge or a dalia, where more milk can be incorporated. In fact, a curd-based item or a paneer, if the child is able to have equivalent to that amount of milk, it's perfectly fine.
Okay. Can you please throw some light on this childhood obesity and the fatty liver diseases in
So now
this
this is
generation kids? Yeah.
This generation kids, and in fact, since the past decade and all this, childhood obesity incidence is rising. And if I remember correctly, it's around what the figures show is in Delhi. Some studies were done some time back, and the obesity rate incidence was almost about 23% in school-going children, and 17% also somewhere in some other state. In Chandigarh also, we had done one long back, and that time also it was something in tune of 8 to 9%, which is very high. And it has been I think there's a study, just last year in Lancet study came out regarding the childhood obesity also, where it refers that, every year, annually, the rate of childhood obesity is increasing by some 1.8 or some percent or something. So they have projected that, just calculate how much by the next decade, the incidence will rise. And this is happening because of the faulty lifestyle, the sedentary habits of children. These days, their schools and all, everything is, of course, these days it's online, there's no option. But still, even earlier when there was, the regular normal life was going on, the outdoor activity was very limited, the screen time had increased, and then the exposure to junk foods, the processed foods was huge. And children are having more, they're more empowered in terms of, buying, making choices, buying foods, ordering, foods from at home also, even if they're not going out. So those kind of processed foods and these instant foods, fast foods, whatever they're trying to have, these are having a big impact, and then in the bargain, they are not having healthy foods. They are, high on carbs, high on fats, but they are having a hidden hunger. Now, that hidden hunger is a lack of micronutrients. Okay. So they'll be anemic, and by the time they reach their 20s, their 30s, and they're trying to settle down in life, they will be, barraged with all their, lifestyle diseases, obesity, and diabetes. And we see so many of them. And even now, out of these, 23% of diabetics that were seen, 9% of them were pre-diabetic. Mm. And I think Dr. Madan also was once mentioning that they have, in their institute, they had done a study, and it's an ongoing study, and they have shown a huge percentage of, underlying pre-diabetes and diabetes in their groups also. So this is, and if you really, we don't do it actually, but if you really go to actually, do the parameters on the obese children, I'm sure we'll get a good, alarming percentage of pre-diabetics and pre-hypertensives also in these children. Because they're having too much of salt, they're having too much of sodium, they're having too much of fats, trans fats. There's no sedentary, there's no activity, they're sedentary, they're eating, their sleeping patterns are disturbed. They're waking up late, and sleeping late. So they are not able to, detoxify. Their metabolism is going for a toss. The circadian rhythm, the body clock, which is supposed to follow a pattern, is disturbed. So their metabolism goes for a toss.
Right.
So that's very important, that, and same as you asked for the NAFLD, the fatty liver disease, fatty liver disease. Now we are having clinics in certain hospitals. There are fatty liver clinics, NAFLD clinics, running just for these children, because all these children, if you go to do their investigation investigate them for their liver, you will find
have fatty liver. Yes,
and they are totally reversible. The good thing is that they are totally reversible if they just reverse their lifestyle.
Right.
Or they go on to the further complications of the liver disease. So this is a very common, and the cirrhosis, the non-alcoholic fatty liver cirrhosis, that can be true as they grow older. And right. These things, again, another person, I was hearing a talk that all these are ingrained in childhood. Biased investment, again, coming back to that even the formation of plaque in the case of atherosclerosis starts happening right from the childhood. Oh. And it takes almost 40 to 50 years, for the whole thing to build up to manifest in the form of blocks. So This was just about 3-4 days back. I was listening to a webinar where one Dr. Praveen Jacob from Kerala only, he was giving a talk on fasting and molecular biology. And in that he explained that even, these during the conception, during the pregnancy stage also, when if mothers are eating junk foods, those plaques actually they have demonstrated. He showed a video how those plaques were there already during
Oh,
the the fetus also. And but that when the child is born and the child is exclusively breastfed for 6 months, it starts decreasing because that. But then the child again is exposed to the outside food, and as he grows, and gradually, that plaque will keep on increasing, and it can happen in any part of your body. It's not in the heart, or it can be in any part of your vascular system. So over a time of 40 to 50 years, they will manifest into this.
okay.
So that is why I said it's so important that in childhood itself we have a healthy.
Right. Ultimately, it's like girl child nutrition is more important than a
So
boy.
the future of the see, for boys and girls who are born, for the fetus, whether it's a male or a female fetus, it doesn't matter. He will imbibe the same thing. But
Yes.
When she grows up, the boy will not have any problem because his diet is not going to matter for his offspring. But for the girl's, future, whatever she's going to imbibe, her nutrition she's going to have, and she's having a foundation, whatever foundation she builds of her body, that is going to impact her next generation.
Correct. True. So girl child nutrition plays a major.
Girl child nutrition is very,
very important. I think that is the investment for best future. Right. So we have another question from audience. Mamta Kalyanam is asking, what are the best foods for lactose intolerant kids?
Lactose intolerance, again, you have to see that whether it is really lactose intolerance or not. So lactose intolerance, like it may happen, and it can be a secondary phenomenon. When children have diarrhea and all for some time, they may not have, the enzymes and all might be deranged and all, and then later on they start getting back. So it's all right. But at times when they grow older, children grow older, and even in adulthood, most of us are, because our lactase enzyme starts diminishing as we age, and sometimes in children also it may not be very, good. So in those cases, they can be converted. That milk, they need not give them milk. Then convert the milk into curd. That is totally, almost 60% of the lactose is, moved. So that can, if some children are able to tolerate that much, so if the form of curd and mixed with some cereal or something that is given, that can be tolerated. And even milk, they're lactose intolerant. Even then, if their milk is cooked in the form of a cereal or a porridge or something, that can be tolerated. To that extent, it is all right. But then paneer, again, cheese, the homemade paneer or the so-called paneer that we call, that is a very good option because that has zero lactose. And then they are non-vegetarians. They can have eggs for the compensating their proteins and calcium other requirements, or they can have pulses and other proteins and other things, and they can give them the same nutrients in varying amounts. So lactose intolerance is not a big deal. Okay. It's the milk protein intolerance or the cow's milk allergy, and which is not very common in our country. It's very, very rare. It's cow's milk allergy is different from lactose intolerance. So I hope they are not confusing with that.
Hopefully, Mamta, yeah, if you're listening, yeah. Okay, so I have another question, ma'am. As this generation kids are living in the new normal of, in the living history, it's a history. They are living in a history of new normal, actually.
Yeah, or new normal, one of us.
Yeah.
And for the something which they can,
cherish there.
Yeah.
Right. So what are your suggestions, with regards to their nutrition?
Well, regarding the new normal, I would say that, this is the best opportunity. But
okay.
So, every, downfall has some benefits also, some the flip side of it.
Right.
So, this adversity or this crisis that we are going through, or whatever phase that we are going through, the pandemic, it has given us many opportunities. First thing, it has, actually given us a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call to improve our lifestyle, improve our, eating patterns, and whatever we were going with, we crossed the limits, and that is why we landed with this. And so suddenly now we are all closed down. So in this pandemic, as far as the children are concerned, I won't actually generalize it for all classes of mothers and children, because I know there are different types of people. There are certain people who are going to work and managing children at home. They're having online classes. Schools have started and they're doing online classes. But there are a lot of them who are doing, work from home. Mothers are also working from home.
Yes.
Probably able to devote more time to their children. They're able to give more quality time, so they feel less guilty about not being able to give, because with their online classes, online work also, most of them are able to juggle along with their children's, monitor their children's not only classes. Sometimes the older children are independently doing their classes, but the feeding part. So there are actually, it's more, the option for outside food is highly decreased. They're more into home foods, more into healthy foods, and they can take care of, giving them timely breakfast, lunch, dinner. But then on the other side, I would say that, they should be cautious of not overfeeding them also, because they should remember that their activity levels are very low. They are not able to go around too much. And so in the, bargain of, of showing affection or just concern of the child's health and nutrition, they might overfeed them also. So that also has to be taken care of. They have to have a balance. But this is a good time for modulating the timings of the children also, of getting up, sleeping, and so they should follow the same hours. So their time management is very important during these days also. Just because the schools are not going and the mothers are not going to office doesn't mean that they just get up at any time or sleep late or something, because then 9 o'clock the schools are starting, the children have to get up, they have 1 hour more, because when they're not commuting time, they are saving. So they used to be out of the house at 8 o'clock. So by 8, at around 8ish or so, they can have more time for the mother, to have breakfast properly. So earlier they could not have breakfast and just rush to school. So they have more time for breakfast. Then most of these children, as I learned that, they have breaks in between, and their smaller classes, they have, lesser hours. So they have in between time to have their tiffin, their lunch, and etc. So that can be, it's a good sign. But yeah, in certain cases where the mothers are not able to, they have, like in hospitals and all, who at banks and these kind of areas where the mothers have to go to work and their children are left behind. So again, if somebody is there at home, it's fine. Otherwise, this is becoming a little problem, how to monitor them. Definitely, many of the mothers, they have, their own means. They have devised their own means of managing in such situations also. So if the father is there to monitor, so in a way, it is good that they are able to take care of their diet, more healthy diet, home cooked foods, less of junk foods, and timing is organized. Their sleep timings, and that can be organized.
Okay, we have a question from Gayatri. Ma'am, how to improve immunity in school-going kids against common colds and fevers? Yeah.
See, immunity, if you talk of immunity, it comes to a good diet. What you need for immunity, they've been hearing at nauseam now since the past 3-4 months, what are the good foods, immune boosting foods. And the same applies to the kids also, the children at home also. It's good proteins, vitamins A, vitamin E, vitamin D, which is maybe sunlight is not available. So, but milk and all is fortified. Vitamin D levels, if they are very low, they can be supplemented also. But green leafy vegetables, vitamin C, and if leafy vegetables are not there, any seasonal vegetables, cereals and pulses, a good combination. So all those food, along with that, some nuts, walnuts, almonds, and all these can be incorporated. It's these are the traditional habits, eating pattern of our culture. So these can be given. Fruits can be given. So those things can be taken care of. And whereas this is regarding from the part of diet. But right. Is there are flu vaccines and other things which are also coming to popular. So those are good options. They should be vaccinated definitely. But from the nutrition point of view, that again, the same thing that we discussed some time back regarding healthy, balanced food. So if you have a healthy, balanced food, you will have cereals, you will have pulses, you will have milk products or milk, and you will have fruits. And along with that, you'll have some fat, good fats. You will not have too many fried foods. You will not have too much of sweets or too sweet foods or processed food. So these and tomatoes and like a variety, more colored vegetables and fruits that you incorporate. You'll have all vitamins and minerals.
Right. We have another question. If the child has to have canteen food due to staying in the hostel or PG like that, what food choices are better from those available there?
See, if you're staying in a hostel, if it is a college hostel, sometimes, they generally don't like the food because the way it is cooked, the preparations are not very good. But again, they have, because I have had some parents who have been, they are in a hostel, living in an apartment or wherever they are, going to the school or the workplace where they have a hostel or canteen or something available. So they are, when they're offering meals, they are offering the same dal, roti, sabji they are offering. So, but the thing is, the way they are prepared, children don't like it, or they're not used to, or some children coming to north over here may not be used to those kind of preparations, or similarly vice versa. So in those cases, we have to see how best they can, where they are living. If they are living in a, PG, or if they are living in some, in a room where they have some access to do, self-help kind of a thing. They can have like breakfast and all. They can have something with them. Now, again, I won't say processed foods should be encouraged, but they find that they're not able to have, they can have some cereal, some oats or something along with them. Milk can be bought if it's not available from a canteen. They are not able to get adequate amount of milk or during the evening. Milk can be procured. Just boil it, and they have to do a little bit of self-help also. And then store some healthy foods in their rooms, so that in between, when they feel hungry, they have fruits, choices of food, they can store that. They can get some salad kind of things, which should just cut and have it on the go. They can have nuts along with them, they can have on the go. So those will be much better than the other junk foods. But in terms of meals, I think there's a limitation. So either you have to again see whether the hostels are serving the good quality foods to some extent at least, but there's a challenge in this. And if there are children, I would say there are certain older children who come, the teens, adolescent children, they're managing, they're staying in the hostel, but they're managing small little things that, self-help kind of a thing